lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise, he did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. He did the monster.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan. Oops, I forgot. I'm sorry. Try again. I didn't pot you up. Go ahead. Sean Keenan.
Yes, Heidi, we're watching yet another Crow movie.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and this time around, the Crow looks like Paul Rubens from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I actually watched that on the big screen not too long ago, and you're not wrong. Today, we are continuing a tradition. You know, there's a lot of things that we do every year. Everyone likes,
I love this tradition.
Valentine's Day.
It's hard to get through, but I love this tradition.
No tradition is too dumb for us.
And no, we decided 4 years ago that we should start reviewing a Crow movie on every Halloween, and sure enough, here we are again with number 4, The Crow: Wicked Prayer from 2005, I believe. So we're gonna be delving into that one today because you know we all want Eddie Furlong to be in a Crow movie, right?
Oh yeah, that's what I thought the time I saw the first one, man. I thought, where's that kid from Terminator 2?
You know, if the 12-year-old from Terminator 2 was in this, it'd be so much better. But we'll be discussing that, of course. But we also want to get to the mailbag because it's been a hot second since we've hit some mailbags. So let's open that bad boy up, shall we?
Bale's here.
And this one is from Patreon supporter Krista. It's entitled, Oh, Snap! I have to read about half of this, I think, in like a kind of 90s Girl Valley voice, because that's how it's written. Home Slices, what's up? I gotta give you props, because it was totally dope that you covered barbed wire. As a 90s chick who dug comics, this movie was hella sweet. Back in the day, I was all about Motley Crue and Warrant and Metallica. I saw Crue live and Metallica 4 times. It was like so fat. Totally bummed out that you were hating on it, though. And what's with that so-and-so calling Pam ugly? Brutal, dudes. She was slamming in Home Improvement and Barbed Wire. Anytime I saw her, I was like, swing, and I didn't even know I played for both teams back then. Comics back then had women looking like how she looked, and how know what I mean? Pam, not tight, as if talk to the hand. This holds up well, that 90s speak, didn't it? I hadn't heard Barbed Wire gank the story of Casablanca. Word. Like, Barbed Wire was super fly, but Casablanca is the bomb. Bruce, you need to check it out. It's only $2.99 to rent on iTunes. Nice, right? In all seriousness, though, I hope you all would, I knew you all would hate that movie, and I was hoping for more Doctor Strange treatment, but alas, we got some actual information about the movie. It was pretty neat if you want to know what Jack Noseworthy's actual shameful paycheck is. It's his role in SFW. He, Reese Witherspoon, and Jake Busey all in that one, along with Gary Coleman and Carrie Fisher.
Nice. I got to check this one out.
It's a bizarre movie and way more 90s than this movie. I got to bounce, but Sean, mad props for the shout-out in the Dinger Zone, and anytime you want to give us longtime Patreons nicknames, it would be awesome. Peace out, Krista. P.S. To the grocery store comments, Adam, do you know Tops, Food Clubs, Giant Eagle, Chinooks? Yeah, hush with your Albertsons. That was my whole point, is that I would listen to those and I'd be like, hey, what's that, a grocery store? Yeah? Okay. And then I'd never ask it again. I wouldn't go like, well, I've never heard of that. I don't know what it is. Those people are jerks. I just kind of go, oh, all right, well, that's the thing. So, Sean, Krista needs a nickname. What do you got brewing?
The Lil Impaler.
I like that one.
Very true. Bruce, you have an email.
Yes, this one comes from Brian, and he says, guys, I just finished binging season 3 of Daredevil. I'm not generally a binger except for food and alcohol.
Yeah.
But that Netflix show is the best of the Marvel entries. I'm not familiar with Karen Page from the comics, but I find her to be the most interesting character. She has a Lois Lane vibe, only more able to get herself out of jams of her own making. I eagerly await your coverage of the second half of the season. I usually hold off on your episodes covering shows and films I want to see but have not yet seen. I listen freely to those based on properties I don't care about. I didn't care about Barbed Wire, even though I voted for it on Patreon because I saw some comments of others who wanted to see it covered. They're welcome, by the way. Listening to that episode and your references to Casablanca and Humphrey Bogart, it became clear to me you want to cover an older film. Why not do a film from the late 1930s? Pick one that's in dazzling Technicolor where the characters wear brightly colored garb just to show off the new technology. Why not choose a hero that doesn't need to be made gritty or edgy to please the current fan base? Cover a film that does not have a convoluted plot where the protagonist makes 5 different turns to become the hero he was meant to be. Darn it, give us The Adventures of Robin Hood, the good one with Errol Flynn. Nobody swashbuckled like Errol Flynn. It's also got Basil Rathbone, who, by the way, is my favorite Sherlock Holmes. Claude Rains. There ain't no Rains like Claude Rains, if I can add. And also Alan Hale Sr., yes, the skipper. That last one was perhaps best known for being the skipper's father. Oh, so was Alan Hale Jr. was the skipper. My bad. I know your podcast is based on characters that appeared in comics. There were a few issues published. Bruce can come up with something. I mean, even if it's that Green Arrow is based directly on the outlaw from Sherwood. Sean Stallone connection? Good luck, but maybe Olivia de Havilland, who I think lived the longest after the film, may have done something sometime around the Rocky era where there may be overlap. Or maybe take the next generation of one of the actors and link Stallone to Gilligan's Island. Hey, I'd like that one. Did Rambo and Mr. Magoo ever cross paths? Can we make this happen? For crying out loud, you did Ginger Dead, man. Thanks as always, Brian from New York.
First of all, I would not be opposed to that at all. It's a great
good movie.
And we need more great movies on this show because, boy, oh boy, can we be handed some, well, you'll see today's episode.
Is there a Robin Hood themed holiday where we can do a different Robin Hood movie every year?
Oh my gosh. Will you stop giving the worst ideas?
Arbor Day. Every year for Arbor Day, to think of Sherwood Forest and the trees, we're going to do a different Robin Hood movie.
Oh, don't listen. These shows go out to people. You know this, right? They will hear it, and then they will expect that that's what we do. That's how this dumb episode got started. But yeah, man, thanks. Who knows? Who knows if that might be on the list? And honestly, sometimes we are looking for like, hey, here's a week missing. We need to put something in there. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'll be honest with you. This year we're already booked up for the rest of 2018, and there's still things that we aren't going to be able to get to that we would want to.
And isn't there a Robin Hood movie coming out with Eggsy in it?
There is
sure
indeed.
is.
Yeah, so we might have to cover that then.
All right, on to the next email.
Well, keep rolling.
And we're going. This next one comes to us from another Patreon supporter, I believe. Yeah, it's entitled, his name's JF. That's what it's labeled as, so I'm not going to go any further than that. And it's entitled, Had Your Dose of Halloween Horror Yet? Dear HMP, let me start off by thanking you, HMP, for all of your hard work every week. Always entertaining and informative, so again, thank you. Now here's the real reason I'm writing in. In the spirit of Halloween, I have a game for you, HMP. Yes, even Adam can play. You have to cast one of you as a horror iconic character, such as Freddy, Myers, Chucky, etc., and then choose who gets killed first and how does that last person defeat the quote-unquote monster, or does he? Example. I would cast Bruce as every kid in the Children of the Corn because what's scarier? While running away from the bearded children, Sean makes the ultimate decision to trip Adam. Sorry, bud. Adam gets skewered like a shish kebab. When Sean finally gets back to Alaska, why not, to his wife and newborn twins, lo and behold, both babies have full-grown beards. Credits.
Wow.
Looking forward to this week's episode, JF. P.S. I still don't have a nickname for Patreon, so let's get JF a Patreon nickname first and foremost.
Tater Tots.
Perfect. JF, you were Tater Tots from this point on. Okay, Bruce, you're the writer of all of this group here. You, Mister, I have many novels and I'm a published comic book writer. Let's put the onus on you first. What story would you have us told?
Okay, so I'm casting myself as the monster to start with.
Sure.
I want to be the baby from Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
And then I want Sean to be Rosemary, and he dies giving birth to me. And then Adam, you live because you hate kids, so you move to a new town when you hear there's a baby next door.
I want to be the old lady that just kind of is giving you all the weird serums and stuff like that, and like, hey, drink up. It's good for you. I would. Okay, I'm gonna go. So I'm a Freddy Krueger fan, so I'm thinking I'm gonna go Freddy Krueger. And what more fun than to invade the dreams of Bruce, especially Bruce. Sean would just get annoyed with it and probably, he'd figure out a way to kill me real quick. But Bruce, I think Bruce would have more of a time. At first he wouldn't believe it, then he would start to believe it, then tell other people. Other people would think he was nuts. I'd like to see the trip of driving Bruce insane, visiting him in his dreams. That's mine.
Oh boy, man, you better look out for yourself. My dreams can be pretty crazy on their own. We'll see who goes insane.
Ooh, see, that's even better. It's just like, how do you kill him? You kill him with your own dreams. Sean, pick a thing.
I think probably the closest I'm to is probably Michael Myers would be my guess. So I'd say Michael Myers. I think that probably. I think Adam would probably go first.
No, probably.
I would guess.
I see myself as what's going on out here, and then just kind of looking around, just.
Well, I think that, because Bruce would be the doctor,
I would be Loomis.
Yes, you'd be Loomis, and there'd be a whole lot of you've got to watch yourself. Like you are the worst psychiatrist ever in the
He's pure evil. My psychiatric impression is the child is pure evil and
he's pure evil.
Well, there's a line in the original Halloween where he just goes, "The evil is gone," and there's behind the scenes stuff where even he's just going, "Why am I saying this? This is dumb." Donald Pleasance does not want to have any of it. He's just like, ugh.
Well, Carpenter puts him in a bunch of stuff after Halloween, right?
Well, he didn't. Well, he was with a couple of things, but I can't remember the exact order. You want to see a good one, just see any of his Australian films. All of his Australian films are fantastic because it's just him fighting kangaroos and punch them in the face and stuff. Just see Wake and Fright, everybody, and you'll be fine. Let's close up the old...
I would have... Mm-hmm. Oh, I was going to say real quickly, I would have cast Sean as the Christopher Lee version of Dracula.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's a nice one. I like that. Let's close up the old HMP mailbag.
Bale's here.
And as always, if you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'd appreciate it, and we'll read it on the program. What do you think? All right, so we've done this for 3 years. Here comes our fourth one. Here is the trailer. Now, it starts off with a lot of music because we'll talk about why there's a lot of music in this trailer and not a lot of dialogue. But here's the trailer for The Crow, Wicked Prayer.
That when someone dies, the crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. Then sometimes, the crow can bring that soul back to put the wrong things right.
Didn't we kill that guy?
That was the trailer for The Crow, Wicked Prayer, from 2005. But if you were to listen to that trailer, I'm sure you thought it was from like 1996, which, you know.
That was some peak Crow time, though, 96. I really want you to think it's 96.
That's true.
You'll see the movie.
Here is the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. On his way to becoming an immortal demon, a gang leader orchestrates the murder of an ex-con and his girlfriend. This is directed by Lance Mungia? I don't know.
Nailed it.
And starring Eddie Furlong as the Crow, everybody. Jason Boreanaz. Tara Reid, for some reason, Tito Ortiz, Marcus Chung, and a whole bunch of other folks. And for some, Danny Trejo, got to mention Danny Trejo, Damon John, and of course, Macy Gray. No, I'm just kidding. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is like, I almost forgot his name was in the credits by the time he shows up. Feels like he was there for maybe 2 days.
Oh boy, can't wait to talk about that one either.
But let's go to it. We've had several thing here of connection for the Crow here and everything, but I think we're going to get a little bit of a different story this week. Let's do it.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
All right, get your hands ready for picking up names, everybody. Let's go, Bruce.
Well, The Crow, Wicked Prayer is based on a novel written by a guy named Norman Partridge. So James O'Barr is completely free of blame for this one. And don't worry, I'll talk more about James O'Barr in a bit. But Norman Partridge is best known for writing 2 mystery novels about a retired boxer who solves crimes. And that sounds absolutely nothing like The Crow, Wicked Prayer. He also wrote a scary book called Dark Harvest that won a couple of awards, so I have to assume he's a pretty good writer. He also wrote a short story titled The Man with Barbed Wire Fists, and that sounds interesting enough. But why and how, and again, why did he write a Crow novel? Did he win a bet? Maybe he lost one. You may wonder if I've read The Crow, Wicked Prayer, a novel by Norman Partridge, and the answer is no. What part of our experience together makes you think I'm capable of something like that? Now, I did find this review from Amazon. It says, this time, the Crow itself is one of the major characters and actually talks to the man it is partnered with. Dan and Letitia are murdered by Kyra and Johnny, a couple who are driven to seek immortality through Kyra's brush with the Crow. A plaything for a group of wannabe magicians, she reads some old books and comes across some information on the Crow. She hangs herself, hoping to gain power, but the Crow refuses her as her fate was brought about by her own hand, and Johnny rescues her. Okay. Let's see. Here's a little bit more from another user. I should start by saying that I normally don't read media tie-in books, the only exception being the Crow series. I've read all the novels in this series for the sole reason that each novel stands alone and creates its own story. By far, Norman Partridge's take on the Crow mythos is the best I've read. It's also the first novel I ever read. So how about that? Somebody entered the world of reading novels with the Crow, Wicked Prayer. So here's a clap to you, random
Nowhere
Amazon
to
user.
go but up.
Now, the shame on me for this comic book connection is that I had the perfect opportunity to solve the riddle of how and why Norman Partridge wrote a Crow novel, but I squandered it. You see, this summer, up in Canada, I went on a pickup truck ride with James O'Barr. Now, my trusty sidekick, Chris Elvins, drove the truck, and I was a gentleman and let Mr. O'Barr ride shotgun. That left me squished up in the weird little backseat area that modern pickup trucks feature. Now, believe it or not, it was surprisingly comfortable. I did get to have a long, candid conversation with James O'Barr, but I failed to ask him about his dealings with Norman Partridge. Again, I should be ashamed. He did tell me that all the Crow sequels are SHI, you know the rest, but he is very proud of the first one. He was also against Jason Momoa as the Crow initially, but after getting to know Momoa, he warmed up to the idea right before someone he described as a greedy producer irked the folks at Sony and the project got canned. He does have Jason Momoa's number in his cell phone contacts, but he is not willing to share it with weird little guys who ride in the backseat of pickup trucks. Now, I must confess that I was nervous about spending the amount of time in close proximity to O'Barr that I had agreed to, in part because I was worried he may know about Hero Movie Podcast, and perhaps he may know about some of the less than flattering things that may or may not have been said by my co-hosts about Mr. O'Barr. I'd also heard from a friend that O'Barr could be difficult to get along with, but hand over my heart, swear in my comic book collection that I'm telling the truth. He was a wonderful guy, very down to earth, and just like a regular guy who needed a ride in a pickup truck in Canada. He spoke with candor, seemed not to be at all annoyed by any questions. And here's the most important part, guys. He asked questions. Now, a lot of the successful talent that I've been around don't care enough to ask questions about me. But he asked me if I was an artist, and I told him no. I told him I'm a writer. And I told him a little bit about my stuff. He congratulated me on the 2000 AD thing and told me about some irksome stuff from publishers that makes a lot more sense to me now than it did then. Some people say never meet your heroes, and that's probably good advice. And also, Obar really wasn't a personal hero so much as someone I was just curious about. He was a blast, and I'll close with this. If anyone listening ever has a chance to ride in a pickup truck with James Obar, go for it. As long as you let him ride shotgun, it'll be a good time.
Don't make him sit in the back.
That would be some weird advice to get from your dad on his deathbed. Son, if you ever get a chance to ride in a pickup truck with James Obar, let him ride shotgun.
I picture you telling your kids that on your deathbed, but they're going to be like, Dad, James Obar's been dead for 20 years. You see how long I made Bruce last? Isn't that nice?
He does have a good 20 years on. Well, no, a good 15 years on me, I'd say.
So there you go. Okay. The Crow movies have been getting progressively worse as the years have gone on. and I wasn't a fan of the first one. And but
I like the first one, but the sequels have had a problem that like they're not based on anything really until this one, which is based on something.
Okay, so with that said, I mean, does anyone like? I think that was the biggest thing that I found because I knew zero going into this other than Eddie Furlong. Eddie Furlong, Crow. That's all I knew. Outside of that, I was like, oh, Tara Reid's in this. Didn't know that. Didn't know David Boreanaz was in it.
I don't think I really like. I may have heard that there was a fourth one. I didn't know there was an Eddie Furlong Crow. You know, in 2004. I was totally ignorant to the fact that this movie was made. You know, I probably sort of heard somebody mention it recently, and in my mind, I probably thought of the second or third one. You know, I never watched any of the sequels till this show came along. But yeah, so this all snuck up on me. Other than I think I'd heard, you know, one of you guys mentioned there's an Eddie Furlong version of the Crow out there. But yeah, man, this has like a Sharknado cast, like people you know, but you don't really. Yeah. Care that much for. I mean, Tara Reid, 2004, did she still maybe had some options in 2004, right?
It's about this is about where she would be in 2004.
Yeah. She goes off a cliff.
And you know, I don't like to be the sort of person that judge a person by their looks, but she looks a little more sane in 2004 than she has when I've seen her in stuff, let's say post 2012.
No, you're not wrong there.
At least she thought she still had options at this point.
But yeah, no, it's weird. I actually found out that this movie existed by actually just years ago perusing a Redbox. It just happened to be in there, and I was like, "What is this?"
Huh?
What a weird thing to take up some actual physical space in the world.
So I was just like, and part of me was just like, "That's amazing," and no, I don't want to waste $1 on it.
Can we talk about the fact that there is a lot of talented people in this movie? Strangely, how did that happen?
It doesn't make a lot of sense because the director himself does not exactly. He doesn't come from a long list of things that you would recognize. He's only got maybe one other feature previous to this.
And in the beginning, when they're doing a lot of those external shots in the desert and a lot of wide shots and stuff, it actually looks pretty competently shot until they start doing stuff indoors. The look of the initial 30 minutes or so of this movie is way above the look of the other two Crow sequels.
I will say this overall is one of the best looking crummy movies I've seen in a long time. Cinematography wise and everything, it looks fine. It looks like it's very high budget and everything, despite it probably being a very low budget coming from Dimension here in the early 2000s. But it looks good.
David Boreanaz, I mean, Angel wasn't that old in 2004. I mean, he was still somewhat of a commodity. I'm kind of surprised he wasn't who they had playing the Crow instead of Furlong, because I think by 2004, Furlong was a lost cause, wasn't he?
Yeah, this would have been because he had his own kind of. Everyone in this movie has really had their downward spiral at some point. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like Hopper. Yeah, that's it. To be honest,
Angel was still on TV in 2004. So for him to play the role he plays in this is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, but I don't see. That's the biggest thing for this is I don't understand. Well, okay, let's start here because this is the thing that confuses me more than anything in this film is who everybody is and what like this movie, to my knowledge, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong here. This movie plays so fast and loose with everyone's ethnicity that it's like I don't know what's going on.
Well, when they have the French Canadian / Moroccan play an Aztec in Arizona, that's your first sign that they're not going to really care too much about matching folks up.
Well, there's a whole lot of Latinos playing Indians in this movie.
Tons of them. I'm like, Danny Trejo is as Mexican as you can get. Like, he is like, he's their superhero, dude. And I'm like, why is he in this movie as an Indian? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Is it also fair to say that this the person who made this film gave zero concern to being offensive or even insensitive to any culture out there at all?
They were like, look, this had a I was reading this had a 1 week engagement in theaters just to say that it wasn't direct to video, but it wasn't, obviously it didn't go to like regular theaters. It was like one theater for 1 week and then it went straight to video after that. So you can't say technically this is direct to video.
The funny thing is I think it took it like almost a year to get to video though.
Oh, this was shot in 2003, and the debut was in 2005. So, like, this thing, like, they tried to polish this turd as long as they could.
And, man, Dennis Hopper, he said, whatever, I survived the Mario Brothers movie. I can survive this.
I can do anything, man. I'm impervious. But the thing to me, like, that really, my guess is one of the reasons that it took so long and is really because they didn't have a whole lot of movie. Because when you look back at this movie, I would say almost a fourth of it is like, hey, remember that thing that we just showed you 5 minutes ago? Here's a flashback.
Yeah, but that's kind of
and here's another flash. No, it goes beyond what they did in even that other one. They are literally
kind
going
of a Crow standby though.
Yeah, but 5 minutes ago, it's just like, hey, you remember that time 5 minutes ago where this happened? It's like, yeah, I totally did.
The telltale sign of this is whenever you see people driving. If there's people just driving a car, you know that they're padding the time on this movie, and there is a good bit of that in this.
And this was, you said, filmed in 2003. It's out there. I think the 1 week engagement was 2004. Home video was 2005. Like, how famous was Tito Ortiz at this time? Like, I feel like this is a weird time in his life to be in a movie. Like, when I saw him in Boo 2, Medea's Second Halloween, that made sense to me. But seeing him in this kind of caught me off guard. And also, if you got Tito Ortiz in your movie, why don't you have him do some fighting?
Yeah, that's a real
We're
big
burying the lead here. Why did you see Boo 2?
Oh, it was last year at Halloween. I like to see scary movies at Halloween.
And so you decided to see Boo 2, did you? All right.
I was kind of bummed there was no Boo 3 this year. I didn't see Boo 1, so I didn't understand all the backstory, but I got it.
Listen, I can tell you as someone who saw Boo 1, you didn't miss nothing. Man,
yeah,
that thing was terrible.
Was Tito Ortiz like movie level person? It just seemed weird. Like for a minute, because there's also a character named Dave. I mean, not a character, an actor named David Ortiz in this movie. And for a minute, I thought maybe Tito Ortiz had a brother who made this movie.
No. Now, Tito Ortiz had only done, I think, one previous movie to. This is just off my head. I'm not looking at IMDb. He did he was I don't know if he was married or whatever to Jenna Jameson for a hot second.
Yeah.
And they did this really crummy zombie movie together. That's the only thing that I know. But it's
are you
probably
talking about Zombie Strippers?
I think that was the name of it.
Yeah, in 2008, Zombie Strippers. He played the bouncer Rhino.
So yeah, I think this was the then this
That's
was
off the top of my head.
This was the beginning of the end for him, I guess. Then.
And apparently he had a small part in Cradle to the Grave.
Oh, a little Seagal action, eh?
He had a minor role in a Turkish film.
Okay, that doesn't count.
And then, wow, this doesn't even mention his appearance in Boo 2. Did I just imagine that he was in Boo 2? That would be very embarrassing if he was not in Boo 2.
Or racist, with either one or the other.
Oh boy.
Oh, you know what? Because I am on IMDb now, and I'm looking over the director stuff. It makes perfect sense that the director of this movie is the same director of Six String Samurai. It makes perfect sense, man.
Now, I've heard that name. What is that?
It is a post-apocalyptic movie that takes place in the desert, and it's a dude who is like a rockabilly guy who also has like katana blades. And it is basically like watching The Crow without any of the Crow stuff in it.
I've done this movie before. We'll just add Crow.
I'm vindicated because I looked up Boo 2, and the guy who looks like Tito Ortiz is indeed Tito Ortiz.
Okay, good. Woo, bullet dodged. Okay, so let's get to our unlikeliest of heroes, Eddie Furlong. Now, we all fell in love with Eddie Furlong in the Terminator 2 and everything, and we were just like, who's this squeaky kid who's always riding around on that dirt bike? And then, as you might imagine, his career kind of didn't do so hot. Came around a little bit with American History X, which he was fantastic in. Everybody was great in that flick.
And I've heard people that liked his performance. I've never seen the movie, but I've heard people liked his performance in that John Waters movie he made.
Yeah.
Oh, which one was that? Was that Cecil B. Demented?
Pecker.
It was Pecker.
Pecker. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. And this is obviously it's 2004. This is not primetime Eddie Furlong, and he's looking. At least he's not as fat as he was in some of those other things. There was a couple things where it's just like, oh man, Eddie's not looking so hot.
He could be a character actor perhaps. I don't think he's a leading man for an action movie. I mean, he really kind of has like somewhere between I don't know, like Ernest Saves Christmas kind of role would be good for him. You know what I mean? Like he's got a little bit of that kind of odd quirkiness to him. When he smiles, he just looks, well, a little inbred or something. I don't know how else to say it.
Man, he's got his filmography up to a certain point is pretty impressive because he's in Terminator 2, then he's in Pet Sematary 2, then he's in a couple of like videos and things like that, and then he's in Pecker, American History X, Detroit Rock City, and I mean those are all in a row.
Yeah.
And so by the time he goes from Detroit Rock City, which is 1999, to here at The Crow, which is, what did we say it was? It was filmed in 2003?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 4 years. So it comes out in 2005. By the time 2005 comes out, that is where news is out that he's got a substance abuse problem. And so he's in a lot of these like little like very small movies, and it keeps going until he has a comeback here with the Green Hornet. He plays a role in the Green Hornet, which I totally forgot about.
Now, I don't know. I would imagine it's somewhere post American History X and pre-Crow that he starts to have his trouble with run-ins with the law, some issues with substance abuse, going down the rehab road. I know he had a lot of domestic violence claims made against him in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I'll also say this, we all understand the messed up things it does to the human psyche to be a child star, and what was he, 12 when he made Terminator 2? So
right around that. A
little older than some of these kids, but I mean, it worked out for Cousin Oliver. He grew up to be John Denver, but it doesn't work out for everybody. and like one of the sad, very sad things I read was like when he was 13 years old, there was like his tutor was 26 and she had inappropriate relations with him, but at that point in time, California did not allow you to prosecute a female for statutory rape. And I know it sounds ludicrous now, but putting up with that for a couple of years is also going to mess up with a kid's head. And then you go to the drugs. You never really got socialized properly. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, we see these guys similar to Eddie Furlong that fall into this, and some people are able to dig their way back out. I mean, he's still alive, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
I always say that we got our DJ out there, everybody. Anything's possible.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, even though he's woefully miscast in this movie, Eddie Furlong is a very competent actor.
Exactly. He's not doing, and honestly, even in this movie, he's not doing a horrible job with what he's given. And he's not given a lot of great stuff, but you don't go, oh, that's the weak link in this.
Right. And I don't know if I've brought this up before, but I work in the movie industry.
What's this now?
And in 2011, actually, I think we shot it in 2010. There, a very small budget movie that I was the decorator on. Eddie Furlong was the lead in this movie, and he was the nicest guy in the world. And one of the actors in the movie with him is this very young girl, and she was a day player. She worked maybe 1 or 2 days, and she walked up to him one morning on set, and she goes, my mom showed me Terminator 2 last night, and because you're in it. And he said your mom let you watch that movie? And she goes, yes, not all of it, but she showed me that you're in it and you were riding a dirt bike and stuff. And he goes, and it just very, very nice guy. He goes, so do I look any different now? And he's basically making jokes about himself. And, he's at this point now, I don't know if he's still got substance abuse problems, but he was always on time on set. He was always ready to go. He knew his lines. He was very overweight at the time, and he looked bad, but he might have been on the other side of things at that point. I don't even know.
Yeah, because sometimes you have that little that hump of like, well, everything's done now, and I got to get things back in order.
Right.
But from what I've read too, there was this incident where he lost all visitation rights with his children because of some substance-related issues. I think he actually had like a toddler child who tested positive for cocaine after spending the weekend with him. Oof. And went into really intense rehab and absolutely has bought into living a clean life at all costs. Even from what I understand, even if it costs him any chance of a career in entertainment, he'd rather just be like clean and sober than be, working as an actor anymore. So I do think he's definitely come through those demons on the other side. Whether there's a career for him or not, who knows? But I'm always glad to hear the success story rather than the overdose story or life in prison story.
Yeah, especially when it's somebody who is, he genuinely was, in my experience, a very nice person. He was really, really lovely, actually.
And before researching him for this movie, I think I had made the mistake mentally of putting him like in the same category with like young Anakin from The Phantom Menace. What's his name? Jake Lloyd or whatever.
Lloyd. Poor Jake Lloyd.
Yeah, and he does not deserve to be in that category.
No, not at all. Not at all. Eddie Furlong he's taken so much things better in stride. Like the story Sean said right there, is a guy who can kind of look back and just kind of just take it out of it, But Jake Lloyd, not so much. Jake Lloyd is just like, why do you keep wanting to talk to me about Star Wars? It's the only thing you've been in.
And good, bad, no matter what his acting abilities may or may not be, he still looks like an adult Eddie Furlong, who does not look as attractive as a kid Eddie Furlong looked. And when I see his girlfriend here, Lily Dances in the Light, I think is her name given in this movie, I'm not believing for a second that, and I'm not even talking about the character in the movie. Even being a celebrity, I don't believe Eddie Furlong could get a girlfriend that attractive.
No, she is super hot, and it's just like this is not real.
Makes your eyeballs sizzle, man. It's like staring at the sun to look at her when she's got that low-cut dress on stage.
And when you look at him here, Eddie Furlong is in this movie literally trailer trash.
Yeah.
Yes.
He literally is. He lives in a burnt-out trailer. It's just like literally burnt out.
And it's not doing him any favors that every other person in this movie, every other actor, every other character, whether they're a good guy or a bad guy, and I'll even include Dennis Hopper and Danny Trejo in this.
Yeah.
They're all more physically imposing and more attractive than Eddie Furlong.
It's true. It's true. Even Tara Reid, more physically imposing.
The only way I can explain it is there's a backstory that we don't know that Lily is actually related to every other male we see in the movie. So she only had one choice of who to date. Because we know her brother, the sheriff, is definitely more of a manly man than Eddie Furlong.
That actress needs to fire her manager. Have you seen any of the other things she's in? Because you have seen the stuff. You probably just don't know it's her.
I know she's done some pretty good TV work.
Like she's in You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have not seen that.
Oh yeah. She's in a bunch of things I've never even heard of before.
Oh, she's Sloane in Entourage. That's where most people would probably know her.
My
Yes.
second favorite Sloane from TV and/or movies.
Yes, that's a distant second for me.
Well, I like them both pretty good, but you know, it's all about what age I was when I first met them, the impact they had.
She's in Police Academy, the TV show.
That's always a good credit to have on the old IMDb.
Snow Day. There's a lot of.
Let me
bad
be in
things.
that Cuba Gooding Jr. masterpiece you got over there called Snow Day.
What did you guys think of this intro with the title cards? Almost like a good, the bad, the ugly kind of intro where it's telling us about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse here. We've got war, pestilence, somebody else, and death. Who is the somebody else?
This
I've already
movie,
forgotten.
Can I completely take over for a minute? here?
please.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things about this movie. One is that this is, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. This is the second best Crow movie that's ever been made.
Yeah.
That is, and that is shocking. That this movie that is very hard to get through, is the second best Crow movie we've ever gotten. The second thing about this movie that I think is a little nuts is that it's a movie about the Crow, based on the Crow. And 95% of it takes place during the day. The harsh sunlight.
So much
of
sunlight.
the
Arizona.
desert.
Yeah.
It is so ridiculous to see the Crow in the blinding sunlight of Arizona. There's something so weird about it, and it's off-putting, and it's almost like it's kind of the reason why you make fun of goth kids in the 90s, where it's like, dude, get over yourself.
And let me add this. This is a Crow movie that has an Indian tribe, and they choose to call them Aztecs, which, man, you know, I know a little bit about the history of the Aztecs, and I know a little bit about the history of Arizona, and I don't know that those histories overlap any whatsoever, like the lost Aztec tribe of Arizona. If you're making a Crow movie and you need an Indian tribe, why don't you pick Crow Indians?
Yes, exactly.
You know who did do that? Norman Partridge in his book had Crow Indians, not the Raven Aztec is totally for the movie.
And on top of that, you have there's this weird subplot where the Indian reservation is trying to build a casino, and that's bad. And also
that plot goes nowhere.
The miners also are dumping poison into the land, and that's also bad.
Goes nowhere.
And it kind of, all of it just goes absolutely nowhere. But here's the thing, is that if you have Native Americans in your movie, why aren't you making the Crow a Native American? Why is it Eddie Furlong?
Now yes, exactly.
You know how the name Eddie Furlong sells, Sean. Come on.
First of all, not only should the Crow be one of the Native Americans, there's actually a really cool Crow comic where there's a Native American Crow, but also I think that it should be the lady. I think having the lady come back as the Crow, that actress would pull it off. She would be indigenous, one of the First Nation. Well, she's not. She's Moroccan, but,
Whatever.
This movie had no sensitivity.
Whatever.
We're all out of Mexican actors. Get me a Moroccan to play this.
Get
She's
me
got
somebody
dirty
from
blood,
Brazil.
Let's make her a Native American.
Meanwhile, there's just a row of actual Native Americans who live in Arizona sticking up their middle fingers.
I would like to have a
production.
job. No, get away from here, Longfellow.
What's that? Is that guy Japanese? He's Native American for this movie.
Close enough.
I mean, I honestly don't know if we were supposed to believe that the Asian actor with the Georgia accent in this Arizona Indian reservation fits in any way, shape, or form.
I like to think, by the way, there was like 6 different casting people in this movie, which makes me believe a lot of people quit. But
it makes me think, hey, let's have her casted because she can get Boreanaz, and then we'll get him because he can get Furlong,
Yeah, that's
and
probably
him he
not
can
true.
get Tito Ortiz.
it felt like they just had like a swatch and they were just like, are you dark? Like the extras department, are you darker than this? Nah, Native American.
Oh man, Danny Trejo. My goodness, I can't wait to get to what I consider the most offensive part of this movie. And it's offensive to crows of all people. And I mean the actual birds.
Flipping crows. So we again, we're jumping all over the map here, but let's be honest, the story doesn't need a lot of whatever.
And let's talk about the Satanists. The most bizarre Satanists you've ever seen is this group that named themselves after the Four Horsemen. And, you know, in the book, the novel that this is based on, David Boreanaz and Tara Reid's characters had a different name. But the director, the writer, whoever's responsible for their names in this movie thought they were so clever naming them Crash and Burn.
Genius.
Yeah. But, boy, I didn't really expect them to be Satanists. I thought they were just goofing off. But I'm not buying it. I've seen movies with Satanists in it, and these are not movie Satanists.
There's a lot of tacked on ideas, it feels like, in this movie. Hey, not only are they Satanists, but also Eddie Furlong is the one who sent him to prison. Oh, also, they went to high school together, the Tara Reid character and the Lily character. They both went to high school. It's like, what? Where is that coming from? What?
Yeah. And I don't know, the whole idea that Eddie Furlong went to prison, but he was a good murderer. You know, they have to put him in prison for murder because it kind of they need a cold-blooded killer for their sacrifice. I don't know that he needed to go to prison at all, but then they have to go out of their way to explain that he murdered a rapist with this really, really clunky flashback scene.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to he was convicted of a crime he didn't commit? How about just give us the old that thing?
Yeah, give us the Sylvester Stallone in Daylight treatment where I got fired because I was too good at my job.
I'm not on the take, so I got fired.
Right, exactly.
And she cuts. Man, there's this store that Lily works at that is really big on scorpions. Man, like I've been to Arizona. Scorpions are not as prominent as they are in this movie. If you actually go to Arizona.
Well, there's scorpions everywhere in this movie where when he wakes up in his trailer, there's a scorpion walking on him. And then for some reason, he picks it up and puts it in the refrigerator.
In like a bag of hair.
Yeah.
And there's like this
What's
bucket.
that about?
There's this bucket in front of the store that Lily's family owns and operates that says scorpions, $1. Like it's a barrel, not even a bucket. It's like a big barrel. And that would be like where I live, going to a store that had a barrel that said spiders, $1. Like who's going to buy a spider? Who's going to buy a scorpion?
Honey, go down to that bucket there and get yourself out a couple scorpions before we head home.
Pick me a good one.
They're like goldfish in this continuity, in this world.
I want one that's fighting.
Can we just go ahead and go straight to Eddie Furlong as the Crow?
Oh yeah.
When how about the way he discovers he's immortal? Like he comes back, he's just grief stricken. Which Sean, you worked with the guy. Adam, you've seen more of his movies than I have. You guys are singing his acting praises, but I'm not buying his absolute gothic depression here like I bought it from Brandon Lee, to be honest.
Well, the director also isn't doing him any favors with the way that it was shot.
And shoots himself in the chest, and the bullet goes through, and he looks down and goes, "Huh? Well, that's not going to work. Guess I'm going to be the Crow."
He's just like, I'm immortal now. Let me look like Robert Smith all of a sudden. And by the way, he's the most Robert Smith-looking cat we've ever had in any of these Crow movies.
And which I gotta think is on purpose too, right?
I hope so.
They're trying to crow him down a bit. It feels like.
Oh, by the way, just as an aside, James O'Barr, not a big fan of Sting's shtick.
Huh.
Oh,
Explain.
that's hilarious.
Yeah, Sting kind of didn't ever acknowledge the Crow formally.
Let me Bruce, hold on 2 seconds here. I gotta do this because Sean's maybe I don't know. Sting the wrestler, Sean.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
Sting used to have like blonde hair and paint his face the colors of the rainbow. Then after the Crow came out,
that's
he
my
turned
era.
himself into the Crow.
He turned into the Crow. Yeah.
And then never acknowledged James O'Barr the Crow at all.
That's awesome.
That's what the Sting Crow era. That's where I checked out, boy. I was more of the 90s with
Sting is still currently the Crow. If you ever see him make a public wrestling related appearance,
God bless him. He's like 60 years old still doing that.
Yeah, that's how wrestling goes.
Yeah.
Nowhere to go but down.
So when he does show up as the Crow and decides, just everybody has a really convenient reason for the face paint in all these Crow sequels. Like it made sense in the first one, like because it's the first one and no matter what you do, it's going to make sense. Yeah. But boy, they have convoluted ways for everybody else to put on the face paint, which I never liked that concept. and I guess it is a concept that O'Barr introduced into the comic, but I would like it better if something about being the Crow made your face look that way.
Right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have
Supernatural.
to come up with reasons for that guy in Salt Lake City to paint his face up like the Cure. And then we got, I think the way they explain it is the year before he went to the Raven Festival where he decided that this was a good look. like this is not a good look for Eddie Furlong. Like it's not a great look for that dude from Salt Lake City in part 3. I could buy it with the Spanish guy, and I definitely thought it was a good look for Brandon Lee. But man, by the time we're getting to Eddie Furlong, it's really, really, it kind of reminds me of bad Halloween parties in 1993 when people who shouldn't dress up like the Crow tried to.
It reminds me, like, I think of that as, like, if his lady came back alive and saw him, and was just like, ooh, this is what you're doing? Maybe I should just stay dead.
And you know what? Eddie Furlong's hair, the way it looks regular, other than, dye it black. You got to dye it black if he's the Crow instead of that kind of brownish color that it is. But other than that, leave it alone. Don't tease it like Ace Frehley came into his dressing room and did his hair.
Yeah, and it also has a little bit of that what's-her-face vibe from Glow, the wolf chick. There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that going on, too.
Yeah, you're talking about Glow, the television show, not the actual Glow Wrestling.
Yeah, the Netflix program.
I can see that.
Got a little of that.
And once again, of all the many acting talents that Eddie Furlong may have, he's not what I would call a physical actor.
No.
Because when these fights go off, and then they're suddenly making it look like special effects from a lesser well-done Three Stooges short when he's like flying through the air and stuff, boy, he just cannot sell the fighting at all. He's far and away the least competent Crow fighter of the 4 Crows we've been treated to.
For sure.
I think they try to dust around that as much as they can with editing and stuff like that. But it's
and I want to point out, I don't think any of the other Crows could fly the way he does, but he couldn't do anything else. So I guess they just said, well, whenever there's a fight, we'll just have him fly in the air and land on people, because that's about what we're limited to with Eddie.
All right, we got to get to Dennis Hopper, because Dennis Hopper is just doing what Dennis Hopper does at this point, which is called, I'm just going to chew as much scenery as I can, and apparently just. I really want to know if all of these, all the lingo is in the script or not. Because all of a sudden there's a real sharp left turn.
He's not only a dark priest, but he's also a pimp. And I feel like maybe a lot of his lines were written before he was cast by a person who was just of the closed mindset that if he's a pimp, he must be a black guy that they have in mind.
Maybe.
Because it really feels like somebody fresh off the writing crew of Dolomite or something wrote some of these lines for him.
It's not that good.
There's no segment that can be that cannot be offended by this. And this is one, man. Pimps around the world should be offended by this.
He's around calling people home slice and stuff like that. You're like, what are we doing here, people? This is just 2003, not 2000, not like 1998.
1977. Yeah, we have blaxploitation lingo going out of Dennis Hopper here. And the wedding ceremonies being performed all in street lingo. I mean, him calling Tara Reid a shorty just doesn't even, it hurts my ears and eyes when I say that.
What's going on, my shorties? And you're like, are you kidding me? What is this? It's so bad. And they were just like, he's Dennis Hopper, dog. The man made Easy Rider. Leave him be.
I think they just put a camera on him and said, look, we're not going to edit anything. We have Dennis Hopper, so let's just keep going.
Yeah.
They told him, yeah, you're a pimp, so give us your best subtle pimp performance. And this is what he gave him. I don't know.
He did a line of coke and then went to work, boy.
But it's also, once El Nino shows up, this movie becomes a comedy.
I mean,
it's the first Crow to become a comedy, because David Boreanaz goes from giving us kind of an intimidating criminal performance. He turns into Bruce Campbell right about here.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden they got to a point, and if you've ever worked on like small little no budget type films and stuff like that, when we were in like high school just like shooting little funny movies and stuff like that, initially they would all start off like, this is going to be it, this is the drama we're doing, this is we're all going to be serious, and by the end of it, it was just a laugh silly mess or whatever. It's just called, what other dumb thing can we do now? And that's what this felt like. It felt like they'd had enough, and they were like, you know what, we're just going to have fun with this. Let's just do whatever we do. And they'll, Dimension has to put it out.
thankfully, Tara Reid's range is so narrow that her comedic and dramatic performance is almost identical. But I mean, this does come into a comedy, and you feel like, and I feel like this might have been something that happened even in editing, not in editing, and not when the movie is being made. But somebody said, you know what, this works better as a comedy, but they don't bother to go back and like plant those comedy seeds. It just all starts to come out here.
Oh, so you're suggesting that like on set and everything, they're like, hey, let's do one funny joke, thing, just so we'll have it for the rap party as something that we can put together.
Famously what Kubrick did to George C. Scott.
Yeah, well, that's precisely it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
nuts. He's like, okay, we just need a silly shot to get it out of your system, then we'll do the serious ones. And it was all the silly shots they used.
I'm not saying we're not going to get our hair mussed, but we're going to do another Crow movie.
But it turns into a comedy here, and then I started to think, you know what? This movie might not have been bad if they just realized, look, we got a crappy movie. It's a crappy property. It's the third sequel when nobody saw the first and second sequel. You know what I mean? Like we are so far down. How about we have a little Sharknado treatment with it? But in 2004, I still don't know that people could be as self-aware about movies as they can now in the internet age. But imagine if they just looked, if somebody who had a lick of common sense said, look, Eddie Furlong's your Crow, Tara Reid is your villainess. You've got Tito Ortiz in a major role. Come on, let's go scary movie. Like let's give the Crow the scary movie treatment here.
And the guy who played Tank in The Matrix, and that's the only thing you ever remember him from.
That's true.
Because it's in this part where it switches to be a comedy. You know, the Crow gets injured, so Eddie Furlong starts losing his power. And then all of a sudden, the way to win the fight is for Danny Trejo to take his shirt off and do a very, very, very offensive version of a rain dance around a dead crow that, like, is the crow bringing him back to life dance.
You know what makes that okay, though, Bruce?
What's that?
The Mexican lady tattooed on his chest.
Yes. Like, if you look close, it says right across his shoulder blades, he has tattooed large, I am Mexican, I am not from Arizona, and I am not a Native American. Like, huge across his back. But yeah, the guy's there, and it's like he's a priest through the whole movie. Then he takes off his shirt, displays his proud man boobs, and all of the prison tattoos that he had because, you know, Danny Trejo did do a little time in prison.
He did. Listen, man, I don't know what the heck to make of this movie. By the end, I was just like, well, the credits ran, and hey, that's half the battle, isn't it?
I honestly like David Boreanaz's character a lot more when he turned into Bruce Campbell because he was a little bit Satan. And then they had to, like, for some reason, they had to consummate their marriage for him to stay Satan. Like some of those rules just don't make sense.
And how Tara Reid knew those rules, I don't know.
Because she had a book. She had a book that the pimp made her kiss, remember?
Kiss the book. Why? Just because it's weird?
It is definitely weird,
it's
man.
Just super
I can
creepy
think a few
to
things creepier than an old man asking a young woman to kiss his book.
Hey, why don't you kiss that book there, girl? What? Why? It's like, it's not, but there's just something weird about it. You're like, no, that shouldn't happen. The movie's so over the top and silly once it gets to this point, and like, yeah, that really is you know what I just thought of? This is kind of like Dusk Till Dawn. Dusk Till Dawn's a pretty straightforward movie until you get to the bar, and then the movie changes completely. That's how this movie is. When they get to Dennis Hopper, all of a sudden the movie goes in a very different kind of place.
And you know, they try to do the traditional brooding Crow stuff. They try to do the depressed high school kid, you know, who's depressed because his mom's minivan isn't as cool as his neighbor's mom's minivan or something like that. They're really doing some of that in the beginning, and then when they switch to the comedy, it just doesn't seem right. But it works better for me here at the end. I think if they just made this a silly movie from the get-go and said, you know what, can't be any worse than the one that came before it.
Well, and it's not. The thing I can't figure out about this one is that it's made by some competent people. Like, not everybody who made this movie is competent at their job, but some people are.
There's enough competent stuff going on in this movie that you're just like, there's a goodly amount of people that know what's up. and some
Yeah,
that
hey,
certainly
I'll
don't.
say this, man, maybe controversial, but I appreciate Tara Reid's performance in this movie more than Kirsten Dunst's
Honestly,
performance in the movie we talked
Tara
about last
Reid
year.
Oh,
is
yeah, for
not
sure.
bad in this movie. She's Tara Reid, but she's not horrible. She's okay. She's one of the better actors in this film, and that's saying something. Anyway, I don't know what else we can say about this movie other than our Robin rating, but we're not going to do that right now. Right now, this is the part of the program where we delve back and we ask ourselves, how in the world does this movie relate to Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh,
Danny Trejo plays the role of Harold in The Crow, Wicked Prayer. And while I think we can all agree Danny Trejo is pretty great, we can also agree it doesn't matter what you name Danny Trejo, it's always going to be Danny Trejo.
yeah.
With one very big exception, the role of Machete. He's still Danny Trejo, make no mistake about it, but there's something ridiculous and awesome about the Machete character that it separates all other Danny Trejo roles. Now, this may surprise some people because it certainly surprised me, but Danny Trejo has played the role of Machete since 2001, where he played Machete in a movie called Spy Kids. Now, at the time of this podcast, Trejo has played the character in 9 different movies, with a 10th just announced in the upcoming Machete Kills in Space. Now, adding to the unbelievability, this character started as Uncle Machete in the 2001 aforementioned Spy Kids, and he's been in every other Spy Kids movie ever since then. And because he was in every other Spy Kids movie, Machete was also a character in Spy Kids 3D, a movie that even one of my kids, I can't remember which one, when we saw the commercial on television, turned to me and said, "Dad, do we have to see this?" These are the same kids who watched That's So Raven with a tenacity that can only be matched by my dog when cheese is being opened in the kitchen. But back to Spy Kids 3D. You know who plays the villain in Spy Kids 3D? Well, I'm not going to tell you, but his name rhymes with Shishmester Spallone. He plays the toy maker, an evil toy maker. Now, the Spy Kids franchise could easily transition into a TV show, and I think it's only a matter of time before it does that, which is fine. But I imagine that somewhere there's a Spy Kids purist out there, madder than hell that the original vision is being sullied by the new batch of Spy Kids. How does this fit into Spy Kids continuity? And they'll ask if season 1 is in movie continuity. But if you bring in the original Spy Kids for an episode, maybe bring in Mike Judge as Donegan Giggles for another, bring back Uncle Machete for an entire story arc, I would watch. Not the whole thing, mind you, but I would give it a look. I would want to see what that looks like. And there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection is Danny Trejo. Now Antonio Banderas and Ricardo Montalban. Let's review The Crow, Wicked Prayer, so we can write long-form think pieces about this movie. The reason why cinema was invented.
I'll tell you this much. I am shocked at how little there is that I could find on this movie on the internet.
It is surprising since there's so many famous people in it.
It was just like, no, we shall never speak its name again. Well, here on Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. Give the page a like and check it out there on the top of the screen. Bruce, where does The Crow, Wicked Prayer fall on the HMP scale for you, sir?
Well, Sean summed up the first part of what I have to say perfectly earlier when he said that this is the best of the Crow sequels. And I agree with that. But it's also the worst Crow we've ever had. So it gives me these conflicted feelings, kind of like one time when I saw a really, really attractive lady in a short skirt and a Bill Clinton mask. Like I just felt confused. And that's how this movie makes me feel. It's got a little something like, you got to see how bad this is. Like, I think part of what makes it more enjoyable is that it's just not bland. It can go into the so bad it's good territory.
Yeah.
Are they aware that they're making it bad and doing it on purpose, or is it just some kind of beautiful accident? Like, we didn't talk about this at all, but the car that Eddie Furlong's character has is like a gremlin painted to look like the General Lee.
It's so awesome.
Now, I think that's awesome, but I don't want to give anybody link to this movie credit with coming up with that idea. I think they saw that car already painted that way and thought, okay, we got to give this to Eddie. I don't think they sat in a room with a blank piece of paper and said, come up with the perfect car to give our hero. And somebody said, I've got it. A gremlin painted with like the General Lee. Like, and nobody came up with that from scratch.
Speaking
they ran
of
into
which,
this
though,
car and just bought it.
Have we ever up until this point seen the Crow behind the wheel of a vehicle? I think maybe a motorcycle, but no actual car.
We saw him
right?
In a car in the one that we watched last year that was set in Salt Lake City.
I try to bleach them all out of my mind as fast as I finish watching them.
But it's got a bunch of actors you know but don't really like. But I will say that for the Crow rain dance alone, I'm going to give it like a morbid curiosity sort of Damian Wayne. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody that it's good, but I'm going to tell them they have to watch it.
All right, Keenan.
This is the lowest Damian Wayne I could ever rate something because it's not good, but it's also it doesn't deserve anything less than that. I don't hate this movie, but it's not good. I would not recommend anyone seeing it. I wouldn't recommend anyone, like, even if you're one of those people that you have to watch every version of The Crow, don't bother watching this. There's no reason for that. You're just going to be disappointed. So for me, it is the lowest of Damian Wayne.
That's exactly where I'm at. I can't recommend this in any way, shape, or form outside of you just having a giggle fest on how silly and stupid this movie is. But it's competently made enough where I can't throw a Jason Todd on it because it's just there's too much going on that's being done fairly well.
Right.
And there are some points in this movie that are immensely watchable because they're kind of like, what is this? But there are certainly points that are just like, okay, let's check Twitter, kind of moments. But yeah, I'm a very low Damian Wayne as too. It's just it's not good. Can't recommend it. And that's it, everybody. What are we doing? What's next year? Crow television series?
Yeah.
Yep.
God bless us all.
I say we do 2 episodes a year, though. That way it'll only take us 11 years to get through it.
Good. Sounds like a plan. Because I'll be darn tootin' we ain't going to go through and like, hey, let's go ahead and watch all 26 episodes or whatever. They probably only, there's no way they got
22 episodes. 22 episodes.
Was there really 22?
Yep.
Holy smokes.
Oh, that's great. We have enough Crow forever.
They got a back 9 order on that movie, on the television show. That's unbelievable, man. Fox would put on anything. That had to be a Fox program, right?
No, it was a Canadian production.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
And I'm guessing that they also produced everything in-house and then sold it.
Yeah, probably. But you'll have to wait till next year on that, kids. But you know what? You won't have to wait for our conclusion of Daredevil because we were pretty high on the first half of the season here. We're going to talk about that last half, as you heard in the email there, going, hey, I can't wait till you guys finish this up. Well, you don't have to wait too much longer. Only 1 week we'll be covering the last episodes 7 through, 13? Yeah, 13. Of Daredevil Season 3 next week.
You talking about that letter from Tater Tots?
The letter from Tater Tots, yes. So in the meantime, though, Bruce, where might we find more of your work on the internet?
Boy, it was a crazy week because I put out 2 episodes of Chubby Wizard.
What in the
So go check those out. One episode, I'm talking to a friend of mine who is a voice actor, and we talk about cartoons and stuff like that. Then, of course, we had to put out an extra episode with Chris and myself talking our own little take on Daredevil Season 3. So people might want to go check that out if you can't wait till next week to hear what we have to say on HMP. And Hero Movie Podcast has another episode that was produced by my good friend Dan Ritchie. This one all about Spider-Gwen.
Are you talking about Heroes and Villains?
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Hero Movie Podcast, but that's okay.
It all runs together. I'm pulled an Adam. I call that my Adam moment.
Hey, it happens to the best of us. Sean?
You can find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean or at dogeatpod.com.
And, of course, I am over at the Film Find. 31 Days of Halloween Horror still rocking on here and everything. Only a couple more left with that. I can't believe I've gone the entire month and done it every single day, so good for me.
But good job by you.
It's been a pain, but we've got it done. And this week I'll be reviewing the writing and directing debut of one Jonah Hill. Mid-90s is one of the main ones I'm going to talk about, and if you're anywhere between the ages of 30 and 40, I think this movie is going to sing to you in a lot of ways. But we'll check that out over on the Film Find. Check that out, thefilmfind.com. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking the second half of Daredevil Season 3. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty.
Baby, here I am, I'm a man on the scene. I can give you what you want, but you got to come home with me. I've got some good old loving and I got some more in store. But when I get through throwing it on you, you got to come back for more. Boys and things that come by the dozen, that ain't nothing but drugstore love. Hey, little thing, let me light your candle, cause the mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around. The words, and I'm a man, a great experience. I know you got another man, but I can love you better than him. Take my hand, don't be afraid, I'm gonna prove every word I say. I'm advertising love for free, so you can place your ad with me. Once I come along and down by the dozen, that ain't nothing but kissing love. Hey, little thing, let me light your candle, cause the mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around. Cause mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around. Hard the hand and now. Oh yeah, let me light your candle, cause mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around.